And I'm not going to be afraid to say, well, I'm not sure I agree with that. I'm not sure I agree with this, but I think you and I agree here. So maybe some of you don't want to hear what David thinks, because maybe some of you are thinking, well, David's not maybe quite as strong on some of the issues of Christian Zionism as maybe Brannon is. But you know what? That's okay that we have conversations back and forth, because I'm trying to figure out what people believe, what they're seeing as former military people and as strategists, because I want to know what Colonel Rob Maness thinks. I want to know what David Pyne thinks. I want to know what these different people think, and then I can grab that information and then say, well, maybe I should rethink this. Oh, that's concerning. Oh, I don't agree with that. It's very important on talk radio, talk TV, that we don't always talk to the people we always agree with 100% of the time. Again, particularly when we do agree with them on major issues. And I think David and I agree tonight that we got to be very careful in that part of the world not to get ourselves caught up in a war with Iran that goes much longer, requires a draft, boots on the ground, or that gets us caught up in something with China or something with Russia, or that has Russia and China backing them, as we're going to see tonight, as China seems to be just cranking out the drones for Iran. So I want to get into all that. But I really want to ask him, does he believe the war in Iran is about Iran acquiring nuclear weapons? Because hasn't Iran had nuclear weapons for quite some time? David Pyne, I think, is going to say yes, because his former boss, Dr. Peter Vincent Price, sat at this desk telling us for several years, Iran has at least one nuclear weapon, if not more. So if that's the case, is this really about Iran having nuclear weapons? And if it's really about Iran being a threat, why are we allowing all these Islamists to take over America and build mosques and grow? There seems to be a disconnect between America's domestic policy and our foreign policy. If Iran and their chance of death to America and death to Israel, if it's such an existential threat, and I think it is a threat, but if it is such an existential threat, why are we allowing these imams in their mosques that are chanting the same thing? When your domestic policy and your foreign policy don't line up, you got to start asking a lot of questions, which then will bring me to my next guest, which is Patrick Wood, because he's written a brand new article today called IMEC, Trump's war with Iran is about global trade, period. He's stating this is about building an infrastructure in the Middle East that is very much about enriching certain nations that are going to be involved. It has to do with the Abraham Accords. They want to get a hold of that straight. It's about trade, money. Well, the General Smedley Butler wrote that war is a racket, where he said almost all wars are fought for corporations. So are we being told something different than what is reality? Is this really about a collection of nations, whether it's the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, some nations like Greece, Italy, others, working together for trade routes, which really comes down to money and power and money, really money? We got a lot of questions we have to ask. I'm going to learn a lot tonight. I can tell already. I'm going to learn a lot. But I know David is very skeptical about this incursion into the Middle East. And I want to hear from him. And when I agree, I'll agree. When I don't agree, I'm going to push back and say, well, I don't agree with that part, but here's why. But let's have a constructive conversation. And then let's bring in Patrick Wood, who I think from reading this article today is going to show us at the end of the day, this war isn't about so much Iran having nuclear weapons, because they've had them for a while. And we're going to spend so much money on this war. What are we spending? About $1 billion a day? How many billions will it take to harden the grid? I want to ask David that. How many billions would it take to harden our grid from an EMP attack? In other words, if we are fearing a threat from Iran, from nuclear or EMP, well, what if we spent the money hardening our grid and building a golden dome, an iron dome, like Israel has, and hardening our grid from EMP? How much would that cost? And if we really feel this is a threat, why are we not doing that? Is that not a legitimate question? Because at the end of the day, it may not be about that. It may be about trade and trade routes and building a power of people together on an international Gaza board that are going to be more powerful than the UN. And to be more powerful than the UN, what you need is the golden rule. He who owns the gold makes the rules. So you bring together a collection of people that pay $1 billion apiece to be on the Gaza board, and they're involved in these decisions, and they happen to cross over with the Abraham Accords, and all of a sudden these people become extremely powerful on the global stage. Is that what's being set up? And how does it fit in with Bible prophecy? Revelation 17, Revelation 18. I want to bring that up tonight with Patrick Wood. We've got a lot to do. Let's get going. Okay. I'm going to tell you, as I do every night, I can't keep doing this without your support. I sit here for hours on end and do work. I do research. Our bandwidth bill, we've got to bring in over 40 grand a month to pay our bills. I need your support. I need it now. I got to get to the program tonight. We have a lot to do. I'm just going to say it bluntly. If you support us, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're not supporting us, but you can afford to do so, I need you to do it. worldviewfoundation.com so we can keep pushing out programming like this. worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You can also go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors and find all kinds of great products that we use that support your health and your home. And you can support us at the same time with each purchase. So please consider going there. Two great ways, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. I'm not going to spend a lot of time tonight plugging this. You know it. It's there. I need you to do it. What I also need you to do is right now tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, because I think a lot of your friends are going to be shocked by what we're going to uncover tonight. We're going to discuss something very few people are discussing. Why are we really engaging so aggressively in the Middle East? Because if this group of Islamists in Iran are such a great threat to America, why are we allowing the same brand of Islam to buy mosque, to buy churches and turn them into mosque, and build compounds and get elected at the local, state, and federal level? Something isn't adding up. Our domestic policy does not match our foreign policy, which means we're not being told the truth about something. And I think Patrick Wood has just uncovered it tonight with his article that this is really about global trade, period. Money, technocracy. Wow. Get your family and friends on board right now. Tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. But for sure, remember, we can't do this without your partnership. worldviewfoundation.com. Let's get started. Joining me now is David Pyne. Been a little bit since we've had David on. He is the head of the EMP task force that our friend, the late Dr. Peter Vincent Fry, led. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brannon, great to be with you.
You too, my friend. All right, so let's get into this whole thing. During the 12-day war last June, I was saying, hey, maybe we should stay out of this. Let Israel take care of it. We'll back them up. We got to be careful. We probably have proxy terrorist cells here in the U.S. The American people need to realize a lot of times these wars go longer than expected, cost more than expected in blood and treasure, money. Blood, of course, is the main concern. We don't want to see anything that tangles us up into a war, turns into a Vietnam. We don't need to see a draft. The 12-day war came off. They claimed to have set their program back, but now we're at it again. There seemed to be, I don't know what I'm not being read in on the intelligence, but they felt like there was some kind of imminent threat. I know we played the last 2 days clips by Dr. Peter Vincent Fry from this very desk, warning about the threats from Iran. I want to play one of them, and then let's get into some of your tweets, because I think you and I are in agreement in at least one area, and that is whatever we do, we got to be very careful, because we need to learn from what happened in Afghanistan, Vietnam, etc. But that's not to say that Iran isn't or doesn't pose some kind of threat. Listen to what our mutual friend Peter Price said from this desk. Watch this.
Iran is ripe for a revolution. Are CIA and Mossad paying attention? Maybe we have no choice but to help Israel and the moderate Arab states help the Iranian people free themselves from the Islamist regime. I'm not talking about a war by the United States. I'm not talking about boots on the ground or any American soldier going into Iran. The Iranian people can do it on their own. I think all they would need is some money and some help, and it doesn't even have to be provided directly from the United States. This at least would knock out one of the bad actors, one of the worst actors on the world scene, an actor that may be equipped and armed already with a nuclear EMP capability to take out the United States. And yet they're weak. Their regime is ready to be overthrown by their own people. Let's help the Iranian people help themselves. Let's help them overthrow their evil regime and protect the United States and the free world from the possibility of a catastrophic nuclear EMP attack that could end our civilization, end the civilization of the free world, and destroy our ally Israel.
Do you disagree with any of that?
Not fundamentally, no. I think, Dr. Pry and I saw eye to eye, certainly on the Iranian super EMP threat. You might recall that he warned that Iran likely had developed nukes in an article in 2016 that he wrote with former CIA Director James Woolsey and Dr. William Graham. And since he wrote several other articles before his untimely passing some years ago, 4 years ago. 3.5 actually, in which there were about 6 other national security experts that joined him in that assessment, just in his article alone. Of course, I've echoed that as well. Dr. Pry, I believe, did assess that Iran had super EMP satellites. Tommy Waller and I, Tommy Waller is the CEO and president of the Center for Security Policy. He and I both wrote articles around September 2023 assessing that the NOR-2 and NOR-3 satellites that are deployed at a perfect optimum altitude for a super EMP attack on the U.S. Are likely super EMP armed. Those are Iranian satellites, correct? That's right. So Iran is one of 4 satellites that I assess, or 4 countries rather, that I assess have super EMP satellites over the U.S. The other ones, of course, being Russia, China, and North Korea. I would think that Dr. Pry, were here today, would make the same assessment. And as Dr. Pry noted, he did not express any support for a direct U.S. attack on Iran because he knows the dangers of that. And he, of course, warned very powerfully that Biden was playing with nuclear fire by getting us involved indirectly in indirect proxy war with Russia and Ukraine. So I do agree with him, and I stated, I think, on one of our last shows earlier this year that we did have the option to provide arms to the Iranian opposition. I do not think that would have exceeded Iran's nuclear threshold, but clearly what Trump is doing to Iran today, killing off their 50 of their top leaders, their first family, their supreme political and religious leaders, all of those potentially exceed Iran's nuclear threshold. So, my personal assessment, I don't think that they are going to super EMP us unless we, invade them with a massive force of 500,000 troops and seriously threaten to overthrow the regime. I do think that cyber attacks, their new Ayatollah, Mujtaba Khomeini has threatened what appears to be massive cyber attacks in the U.S. I do think that's coming. The longer this war goes on, the greater the existential threat will be to the U.S. And casualties of this war, if it continues till the end of the year and possibly to the end of Trump's term, are likely to be measured in the millions, not in the thousands.
Wait a minute. Give me that last sentence again, please.
I said that if there's a massive Iranian cyber attack in the U.S., the casualties of this war on our side will likely be measured in the millions, not in the thousands.
Well, we already have the headline here we'll deal with later tonight. U.S. banks on high alert for cyber attacks as Iran war escalates. So they just choose to go after the grid, hospitals, key infrastructure, this, of course, this is what you and I, Dr. Pry, and others have been warning about people being prepared for years, right? Years. I think you'll be fine. I think I'll be fine. Our family will be fine. Most of the viewers in this audience have stocked up. Of course, the question is if we're going to end up needing medical treatment, that could be difficult. But we pray that doesn't happen. So, with that being said, do you believe that President Trump is going to proceed? I guess 2,200 Marines are going over there. Do you believe things are going to proceed to a point where we end up with more boots on the ground, per se? And do you believe we're going to proceed where we do see cyber attacks of the country? How do you see this ending? I think at one side, President Trump would like to get out of this thing. Would he not?
Well, he tried to get out of it the night one of the war. You know, after he killed Iran's supreme leader, he reportedly it was after 4 Iranian anti-ship cruise missiles were launched at the Abraham Lincoln and came close to hitting that. They were shot down, of course, and I wasn't worried about them not being shot down because they were the slower ones. I think that kind of sent a message to Trump that they could sink one of our aircraft carriers, and he doesn't want to be the president who leads us into a war that sinks one of our super carriers. And the law loses about up to 5,000 dead sailors, and that's something that can happen at any time. Just as Iran has the capability to shut down our power at will. We essentially have no national security left as long as this war continues, because that could happen. Trump has maximally incentivized Iran to do that. Iran has thus far not taken the step to strike out and sink our Navy ships. They do have the capability with hypersonic missiles. They have the Fatah 1 and Fatah 2 hypersonic missiles, which also come in anti-ship variants, and one other hypersonic missile which could be used to sink the carrier Abraham Lincoln, as well as other major surface combatants the U.S. Navy deploys. So in answer to your question, I do think that Trump is supportive of deploying ground troops. I think that he's being told behind the scenes, that a U.S. ground invasion is really not feasible unless he reinstitutes the draft or mobilizes almost our entire Army reserves, because he would need at least 500,000 troops to invade Iran with any prospect of success, and they have a 1 million-man army essentially. And have the potential to draft up to 10 to 15 million more to defend against the U.S. invasion. All
right. So this gentleman, Brandon Whiteshirt, I guess that's how you say his name. He says clearly the Trump team intends to deploy troops to the shores of Iran for sea control mission sets. He's saying, I guess, why is the U.S. Hormuz landing is doomed to fail? Now, this is interesting, because our friend Patrick Wood has an article out today. Trump's war with Iran is about global trade, period. He says, I wrote this white paper to lay bare the myths surrounding the war in Iran and to expose the master plan to reconstruct global trade routes in order to dominate world trade. This is a tectonic shift in the geopolitical structure of the world. Further, this is the master plan for global technocracy, even down to making Gaza into a poster child for technocratic state. If you cannot connect the dots here, then you'll be left in the fog of delusion. The general, he had several stars in his shoulder. Smedley Butler, I think his name was. He wrote a book called War is a Racket. I think it was what it was called. He basically said all wars are fought for corporations. Is this what do you think of? I know you haven't probably read the article; it just came out. But what do you make of this headline by Patrick Wood that Trump's war with Iran is really about global trade? Period.
Well, I think this war is, principally about securing Israeli domination of the Middle East. Israel and Netanyahu, and also neoconservatives from the Project for American Century way back in '92, and of course it was revealed by I think General Wesley Clark that there were essentially 7 countries on Bush's, George W. Bush's hit list, and Iran is the only regime that survived. Bush made a smart decision, I think, not to go too far and try to attack or invade Iran. But this has been on the menu for the neocons, Israel firsters, and pretty much everyone else that supports these forever wars for really a quarter century. And so I think this has been something that's been considered by multiple administrations. It's been shot down by everyone, but the Trump administration, President Trump, was kind of sold a bill of goods, as you may have read in Joe Kent's resignation letter. Joe Kent was an American first conservative hero. He told the truth. He talked about how President Trump had been tricked by Israel First members of his administration that supported expanding Israel's influence over the Middle East. And certainly, I'm someone who, like you, would love to see Iran liberated. I'd love to see Iran liberated from its Islamist regime. I think it's a brutal regime. Certainly, it has killed off indirectly, about 1,000 U.S. citizens over the last 47 years. That equates to about 21 U.S. citizens a year. So I wouldn't call that a war. It definitely hasn't been a war, for the last 47 years. The war between the U.S. and Iran, I don't think, started until last June. And this is kind of, this is the natural expansion, I guess, of that war. But the problem is that this war has unachievable objectives. Every single objective that the Trump administration has set, with the possible exception of sinking the Iranian Navy, is just unachievable on its face. And so, mission defeat essentially is guaranteed for the U.S. On the other hand, all Iran has to do to win the war is to outlast us in a war of attrition, which they have the advantage to win. All they have to do is, ensure their regime's survival, and then keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. And as this gentleman that you quoted wrote, I would say that the proof that he's wrong is what we're seeing today, where the USS Abraham Lincoln is cowering 1,000 kilometers away from the coast, barely within F-35 fighter range of Iran's borders. The U.S. Navy is really not providing a lot of force multiplication to this conflict, because the hypersonic anti-ship missile threat is just too severe. So I do think it's if Trump is foolish enough to send the Marines through the Strait of Hormuz, which is only 22 miles, just 1 mile longer than the Strait of Dover in the English Channel, I think we're going to see a lot of sunk U.S. ships, including the USS Tripoli, which is a huge amphibious assault vessel.
Mm-hmm. Now, you and I probably don't agree on everything. I personally think Iran's been at war with us for a while, funding terrorism all over the world and helping Hamas and all these other things. But I mean, I'm not going to quibble over those things with you. I mean, we can all do, it's kind of like, what is the word? Bill Clinton, depends on what the word is means, we can define war, and I guess war or operation and different things are different things to different people. The issue to me is that, number one, here we are having you on. I'm a pretty strong historical Christian Zionist. I'm venturing to guess that a lot of Christian Zionists aren't probably having you on, number one. But number two, I'm not afraid to have you on, because I know that you and I agree on some very core principles when it comes to wanting to make sure we don't drag ourselves into a war that we can't win, and that ends up costing a lot of lives and also causes a draft, which is obviously, as a father, one of my hugest concerns, and has been long before you and I knew each other. Starting in February of 2018, I began to warn about this congressional committee put together by and presidential committee put together by John McCain and Barack Obama, as Obama was going out the door, to study drafting America's daughters. Now, they studied other things too, but they were studying drafting America's daughters. And they had a transgender, former military guy, transgender on there on the committee, and it was a joke. And we covered it starting in February of 2018, and I began to really warn, these guys are going to take us to war. I don't know with who yet, but they plan on drafting America's daughters. This feminist agenda that, hey, the gals got to be treated the same way the guys do. And this, of course, is not the way civilized society should operate. We should value women, protect women. This is not the way society should operate at all. But at the same time, we got to be careful putting our sons on the battlefield and drafting them. So first of all, I'm guessing you're not being interviewed by a lot of Christian Zionist or programs, but I'm not afraid to talk with you about these issues, where even though there are areas where we may not agree, because I think we do agree on some pretty big things like I just laid out. Whatever we do, we better be careful. We better know what our objectives are, and we better get in and get out. But going back to last summer, the 12-day war, me, you, Annie, Many others were saying, let Israel do it. We got to be very careful here. So I don't think my position has changed at all. You want to comment on all that?
Yeah. Oh, first of all, as you know, I've described myself as a Christian Zionist until 3 weeks ago. I was open about my support for Israel, not for Netanyahu. I've opposed Netanyahu very openly, but I still love Israel. I want the state of Israel to be free and defended and secure and safe. And that's the reason why I'm so adamantly against this war, because I want U.S. and Israeli citizens to be safe and secure. And what this war is doing is it's maximizing the incentive for Iran to launch a nuke to destroy Tel Aviv, destroy West Jerusalem, and watch them disappear in mushroom clouds, and to super EMP or cyber attack the United States. And I really think I agree with you. I think you and I are probably rhetoric aside, I think you and I are 90% in agreement about this war, and that is Israel should be allowed to do whatever the heck it wants.
Yep.
In its own region. It can try to be the regional hegemon, and the U.S. should stay out of the war. The U.S. should not deploy ships or troops or planes to defend Israel, but we can provide the armaments, the ammunition, as long as we don't risk our own missile stockpiles. And that's the problem, is we're depleting our both our offensive and defensive missile stockpiles that we would need to fight, let alone win a war with Russia or China. And that means Trump is taking out our THAAD missile systems out of Japan and South Korea. China is massing troops, ships, and planes against Taiwan. One of the most likely outcomes of this war is that China will feel emboldened to invade Taiwan either next month or in October, which are the two best months to invade. And the reason is, the U.S. Is going to be unilaterally disarmed. The Navy is going to be unilaterally disarmed. Not to mention the fact that look at how the U.S. Navy is unable to win a war or break the Iranian blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. According to Trump, we've sunk their entire Navy, and yet without a Navy, they do have a Navy, but it's small ships, missile boats, and submarines that we haven't sunk yet. They have, I think, a few hundred missile boats. We're unable to break that blockade, and there's really nothing we can do to break the blockade short of a ground invasion and occupying the southern Iranian coast right up to the Strait of Hormuz to break that blockade. So, I think the losses that we would see would be massive. I think it could be rival Pearl Harbor if we were to send an invasion force through there, in terms of the biggest U.S. naval defeat in modern history. But I think China and Russia are the big winners. China, of course, is getting much more oil now since the war began than they were before the war began. And other ships are not being allowed to transit. An Indian tanker was willing to pay in Chinese yuan, and so they're being allowed to transit. India, of course, is a formal ally of Iran, along with Russia and China and other countries, Pakistan. So I think this war is achieving the exact opposite of what Trump intended it to, and that is it's reshaping the world order in Russia's and China's and Iran's favor. And
again, people could even agree with everything President Trump's doing. They could disagree with our more cautious, we better be careful what we're doing here. They could disagree with all of that and say, no, we're 100% on board. And the polls seem to be with Trump on this in the MAGA base. I'll show one of those from CNN. But those people, at least, I would think, would have to say, okay, but those two guys right now have a point. Are we spreading ourselves too thin? Are we setting ourselves up to be involved in so many entanglements that we are diluted as a military and thus taken down? And you and I and a whole host of other guests on here have warned about that before President Trump was even elected in the second term. Is the goal, we were warning about that during the Biden years, is the goal to get us involved in Russia, Ukraine, get us involved with China and Taiwan, get us involved with Israel and Iran, and we are so spread out that we can't defend our own homeland, our own border. And then if they stir up a civil war inside America, which seems to be coming, and we got all of our troops spread around the world, So and then you add in the fact that we're not stockpiling. We're using up and depleting our munitions. All of these, I would think, even those who are the most bullish on this Iran, Israel, America conflict would have to say, but I got to agree with them on their concerns about an existential threat to America being we're spread so far, our munitions are put down so low that we're toast. I mean, you start letting some of these countries move on some of these other nations. Some of them we're contractually obligated to come to their defense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those concerns are extremely valid. In 2008, President Trump gave an interview with CNN's Wolf Blitzer, and he said that the greatest mistake a U.S. president ever made was to launch a forever war in the Middle East. And that's exactly what he's done, because this is a war that is, he's unable to terminate. He's been trying to negotiate a ceasefire with Iran for the last 2.5 weeks. Almost since the war began, and Iran is refusing. Their terms, their minimum terms, is a full U.S. military withdrawal from the Persian Gulf. And frankly, this war is not going to end until we accept those terms. And so the sooner we accept those terms, the better. And Trump can, Trump can spin this as America first, because his own national security strategy calls for a partial U.S. military exit from both the Middle East and Europe. To refocus on defense of the Western Hemisphere, and also defense against the Pacific against Chinese aggression. So
he would have a good way to exit right now. NATO's not backing him up. None of these people are coming to help us. So this would be a great opportunity to say, you know what? I'm sitting here trying to defend Israel, defend America from what I believe is an existential threat of Iran, defend our European partners. You guys don't want to help? Bye-bye, pull out, leave, come back home. That could be his excuse. Why not?
Yeah, and if you could pull out of NATO at the same time, it'd be a win-win for America, that's for sure.
Yeah, save us a lot of money, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it'd save us trillions of dollars.
That and the risk of getting into Article 5 situation.
What do you mean?
Well, NATO, if NATO keeps pushing with Ukraine and Russia, couldn't we get drawn in that as long as we stay inside NATO?
Absolutely. Yeah. Britain and France have talked about sending troops in Ukraine. Russia has said that they would immediately be targeted and killed as soon as that happened. There's been obviously some disputes with the Baltics. The neocons are saying that Russia's prepping to invade the Baltics and Poland. I think that's completely bogus, but it's possible. And, if Russia did a full-scale invasion of Estonia, a country of just over 1 million people, would it really be a good idea for the U.S. to risk the lives of 260 million dead Americans to defend a nation, half a world away that has 1 million people? Mm-hmm. I don't think so. But that's what the neocons say is that we would have to, sacrifice New York City and Los Angeles for Tallinn, the Estonian capital, and that's just strategic absurdity. So, yeah. I
think where I come down for me personally, David, as a Christian Zionist, is I don't have to agree with everything the Israeli government says or does, and a lot of times I don't. Before October 7th, this audience will remember on 2 occasions I got pretty heated under the collar because I felt like Netanyahu was not protecting his country. He was kissing the ring of Biden, and I got pretty heated at Netanyahu. In my position, my opinion, as a host, as a talk show host, as a commentator, I thought, you're too busy kissing the ring of Biden. This guy doesn't care about you, doesn't care about your people. And you need to do what's best for your country. And I think you're dropping the ball. And that was before October 7th. But I also was very critical of when Netanyahu turned his people over as lab rats to Pfizer and played the video that was so shocking. I thought it was AI, but it turned out, I guess, to be real. So I just have to try to make sure people understand. I don't have to agree with everything the Israeli government does or Netanyahu does for me to want to fight anti-Semitism and not throw every Jew into the same bucket, right? I don't throw every Christian into the same bucket. There are a gazillion different divisions within Protestant Christianity, and most of them don't agree with each other, from the New Apostolic Reformation, which I think is heretical, to the Word of Faith, to the Reconstructionist, the Dominionist, the post-mill guys. There's guys like me who have a different eschatology than they do, oftentimes a different position on what is even the purpose and function of the New Testament church. There are so many divisions within the Protestant, Christian, even so-called evangelical world, right? We don't throw all of them in the same bucket. Why do we throw all the Jews in the same bucket and act like they're all somehow part of the same plan? Israel is a pluralistic society like America. And I guess what I try to say to people is, let's understand that there is a, I don't know, some kind of demonic idea out there to throw every Jew in the same bucket, paint them as all demonic devils, and then eradicate them. And I'm not going to go that route. That doesn't mean I won't strongly disagree with some Israeli leaders at times or their foreign policy, but I have to try to protect this idea of all of our problems come from the Jews. Because I'm telling you right now, it's not a far throw from them saying all of our problems stem from the Bible-believing Christians. And I'm actually hearing some of that right now. I mean, you got Doug Wilson out there who is working with Pete Hegseth, and Doug Wilson saying, when we take power, we think that the Eucharist and any parades of the Eucharist or Mariology ought to be outlawed. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not interested in living in some kind of religious theocracy where this Protestant religious Reconstructionist extremist now wants to implement a state religion. And the point I'm making is a lot of this is stemming from eschatology, theology, and some of it is flat out anti-Semitic, that the church is now Israel, let Carrie Pergine and Doug Wilson says. So I know I went on a diatribe there, but what I'm trying to explain is that people have to understand that there's a greater agenda here that some are exploiting. Missteps by the Trump administration, missteps by the Israeli government, or deliberate steps. But don't use that to somehow prop up this ideology that throws all the Jews in the same bucket and breeds anti-Semitism. You and I can agree on that, right?
I agree with that 100%. Whoever talks about criticizing the Jews, my red flags go up and I'm like, that's bigotry. And I'm not going to support that. I'm not agree with that. I disagree. It's just like the U.S. I mean, were we anti-American for criticizing Joe Biden?
No,
I don't think so. We're patriots. So Israel, there are plenty of Israeli patriots that are amazing, commendable, that are opposing Netanyahu's war policy, just as we opposed to Biden's war in Ukraine. They're great, and I'd love to see them rise to power. I'd love to see another election. Obviously, it's not Netanyahu doesn't need to call an election, I think, for several months at least. But I'd love to see a change in policy, or even Netanyahu deciding that, hey, this war in Iran was too costly for Israel. We've accomplished a lot of our objectives. Let's declare victory and reestablish something, that Trump talked about, which was eternal peace. Trump gave us so much hope when he gave diatribes against the neocons back in May when he visited the Middle East and talked about the Gaza peace agreement as bringing lasting peace in the Middle East, and then he's turned over all those tables and is, basically John McCain 2.0 and fighting this forever war in the Middle East. But I 100% agree with you that we should never criticize the Jews, because there are lots of great Jews throughout this world that have contributed immensely to modern Western civilization.
And if you get five Jews in a room, you're going to have 10 opinions, is what they tell me.
That's right. I mean, there are a lot of liberal Democrat Jews, of course, in the U.S. and they vote Democrat most of the time, but they're still good people and patriots in their own way and doing what they feel is best for Jews and for America and for Israel. And that's why what I'm saying is I want what's best for American Israel. I want Israel to be safe and secure. I strongly disagree with those that argue that Netanyahu is making Israel more safe and secure by maximizing the incentive for Iran to launch hypersonic, nuclear-armed hypersonic missiles at Tel Aviv and West Jerusalem.
Look at this headline from Zero Hedge. Footage appears to show Chinese mass-producing Iranian-style kamikaze drones. These things are like $20,000, $30,000, and they supposedly have just no shortage of them. No shortage of these things. I mean, how do you end a war when these guys have so many of these things to launch at our ships, our troops? I mean, as long as they have these things underground and they have what we're told are tens upon tens of thousands of them, and they're being manufactured this quickly. I mean, we're at a new level. Last night, I don't know if you saw it last night, I had on John Gilduck, who's written several books about mass shooting and terror and the terrorist attack, Islamic terrorist attack in the former Soviet Union, Beslan, back in 2004. And I was saying, look at the difference in the technology from 2004 to now, 2026. We're talking about, taking kids hostage in a school and teachers. And we're talking about the threats of that being done in America, experts warning about that over the last 22 years. Well, do you really have to do that anymore with people on the ground taking hostages? You could sadly target all kinds of school children coming out of the school building, going to load up on the buses with scores of drones that have been smuggled in, built in the U.S., and launched. So the point I'm making is we're at a whole new level of warfare, both domestically and internationally. And how do you deal with a country that keeps these drones underground? And I don't know if they're deep enough that we can't hit them with these bunker buster bombs or what. But this is the formula for this thing getting really drawn out.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I got a message last week from a friend of mine who he is well connected to someone in the U.S. Military who basically said, maybe a former general officer, that said that the U.S. had to scramble half of its B-52 bomber fleet and our Tacoma aircraft because there was a clear imminent threat of Iranian drone swarms used Ukraine style, as an Operation Spiderweb to try to take those out, take out our bombers, take out our Tacoma aircraft. This is the thing. This war with Iran. Iran could deliver the first blow. They could take down our satellites. They could take down our critical infrastructure. They could super EMP us. And then if they were to, they could even launch a nuclear missile, an MRBM, or even a Club K container missile from one of their cargo ships off the coast of DC, take out DC, take out all three of our nuclear footballs, and then China could deliver all the other nuclear blows, nuking every single strategic military target in the U.S. homeland. So, Iran could be our end. They could start World War III, and China could end it, and we would cease to exist as a country. And for what? What are we accomplishing? We're degrading Iran's missile force. We've taken out some leaders, but we've actually empowered Iran. We've made them the hegemon of the Persian Gulf. We've demonstrated the U.S. is completely incapable of breaking that blockade. The U.S. Navy, the mightiest in the world, can't break that blockade. We're empowering China. Russia is now 55 billion richer a year, thanks to Trump, taking down U.S. sanctions on Russian oil shipments. We're funding the war in Ukraine. I don't have a problem with that. I've said that we shouldn't be involved in the war in Ukraine, but I do have a problem that we're empowering China because China is now looking at the map, the risk chessboard, so to speak, in the Western Pacific, and they're watching us move all of our our ships and our air defenses, our missile defenses to the Middle East, and they're saying, "Wow, we can do this, easily." The U.S. Navy can't challenge; they can't beat Iran with no navy, almost no navy at all. How are they going to beat us with the biggest navy in the world?
And the thing is, there are good people, many of them I have on this broadcast, that differ. My guess is you probably differ from what Gordon Chang would be saying about this, right? I'll get Gordon back on, let Gordon talk about it. But I know you, and I know Gordon, and I know you both want to do what's right, and you believe in what you say. I don't know, we'll get Colonel Manus on here pretty quick one night, see what he thinks. The point I'm trying to make is I know people, good people, who I agree with on so many crucial issues related to our country that disagree on this. And I want to make sure, of course, we disagree and all remain friends because like Ronald Reagan said, someone that agrees with us 80% of the time is not a 20% enemy, right? But this is not easy. This is a complicated topic and one that is above the pay grade of most people. Frankly, it's above my pay grade. I've never been in the military. I'm not a military strategist. This is where we have to bring people on and have debates and have these arguments about Is this a winnable war? Can we do this? Can we accomplish our mission and our objective? And at what price? And these are legitimate conversations to have. I mean, we should be arguing these points with each other. I guess I would ask, as we get ready to wrap here, David, what is the objective? If Peter Pry told us several years ago that Iran already had a nuclear weapon, then what is our objective? They've already had one. How many do they have? They have several of them, okay? So they've got several of them. What's our goal? To get them from acquiring 5 more, 10 more, 100 more? I mean, how many, at what point is that just, extra inventory? How many do they need to be a real problem for America or the U.S.? Okay, they've got 3 or 4 or 5. Well, that's a real problem. So is that a bigger problem if they have 10? Not if they can take care of us with the 3 or 4 they've got. So you see what I'm saying? If we've known these years they've had it, why are we moving now? Okay, number one. Number two, if they have it, can we in some way deal with the issue without sparking a greater war that empowers China and Russia or snares us into a trap of being spread thin? And these are all legitimate questions. And I don't think every military war planner is going to have the same answer. Do you?
No, definitely not. I mean, there's obviously a huge divide. MAGA has been split in two. We have the Tucker Carlson America First faction and the pro-war, I guess, Trump MAGA faction is now divided. So, the midterms are going to get blown up. We're going to lose in a massive wipeout. The Republican Party is going to be a minority party for at least a decade, maybe a generation. But no, you're absolutely right. So, we heard from Netanyahu himself, testified to Congress in 1995, 31 years ago, that Iran was 3 months away from building atomic bombs. So I guess we're, Trump and Netanyahu, I guess, take us for fools. We're to believe that that Iran is so peace loving that for the last 31 years, they've had the capability to build atomic bombs, to mass produce nuclear warheads and miniaturize those on their nuclear capable missiles. And they haven't done so. So there's only 2 possibilities here. Either Iran has been a nuclear power for some time, I would say about a decade, as Peter Price stated, or they've deliberately refused to develop nuclear weapons because the supreme leader had a fatwa saying that they couldn't. So, either way, there was no imminent threat posed by Iran, and any Trump or anyone else who claimed there was an imminent threat, a nuclear threat that we had to address or put back in the bottle or destroy their nuclear arsenal because it was about to be used on the U.S. or Israel are completely false.
Yeah, and see, of course, I agree. We could go back to arguing what is imminent threat. I think Iran's a threat since the mid-'80s, at least, when they're hijacking TWAs and shooting Navy divers in the head and shoving them off onto the tarmac and all the other terrorist attacks that they have funded and trained and planned. And reportedly, their own guys were training their own guys were training the Saudi hijackers on Iranian flight simulators in Iran. So, I mean, we can make the argument that they have been a threat. Are they an imminent threat? I don't know. I'm not briefed on those intelligence reports coming in every day. Are they a threat? Yes, they've been a threat at many levels. But at what level is Cuba not a threat when they're fooling around with Russia, who's parking ships over there 90 miles off the Florida coast? Or Venezuela, where we had, Iran, China, Hezbollah, all of them running around in Venezuela. Now that got taken care of to a degree. So we know that all of these people at some level are threats. Then we add in the word imminent threat, and then people can start to argue that one, right? And I think at some point, some of that becomes a distraction because we know Iran is a large funder of terrorism. Yes. The issue then becomes, how do we deal with them? And I know that people have tried embargoes and all this and that, and they're still trying to get them under control. But yet with all of that, and I'm not a defender of Iran, they haven't, as you said, used their nuclear weapon. They haven't EMP'd us. So is this we better, because they're going to eventually do it to us, so we better go after them? Or do you leave well enough alone? Maybe harden your own grid, spend the money, $1 billion a day we're spending right now. Well, we won't be too long. The money we spend in Iran, we could have hardened our grid from the EMP of Iran and taken that move of their military off the table, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that would be the most effective way to limit Iran's influence or ability to blackmail us would be to build a national missile defense system. The Golden Dome, which I think is great. Trump has set a goal of having that completed by 2028. I don't think it's going to happen because Congress isn't funding it enough. And harden the grid against EMP attack, and that could take 2 to 5 years. We haven't even started yet. So, he's undertaking this war against a super EMP, essentially a great power, a nuclear great power that may have, they may have 10 nuclear warheads, they might have 100. We don't really know. I think it's pretty modest. Certainly nothing close to what the U.S. or Israel or probably, maybe at most the size of the UK or France. I doubt it's that high. It's probably less than 100. In any case, they have the capability to nuke U.S. cities from ships. We heard just today that one of the reasons that Trump went to war against Iran was because they would have an ICBM capable of reaching the U.S. in 6 months. I highly doubt that's the case. They do have one ICBM range capable space launch vehicle. I talked about if we had done a peace deal with Iran before the war, I think they would have been willing to dismantle the IRBMs. They offered us a great deal in terms of getting rid of their nuclear program before the war, and Trump sadly rejected that and went to war against them the next day. But there are so many more effective ways to keep the U.S. safe instead of going to war with a nuclear power and then hoping and praying that they don't use those nukes against us. Essentially, everything that Trump warned us that Iran would do, they never would have done if he hadn't bombed them. So Iran's doing, the neocons are trying to construct this alternate reality in which they're being proven right because Iran's doing all the things they said they would do, that Iran would do, but they only did it in response and retaliation to the U.S. taking out the Ayatollah Khomeini and bombing their cities.
And now we have really Russia and China fighting a proxy war with the U.S. through Iran. So, and I don't think the average American realizes that this is not Israel and America versus Iran. This is really Israel, America versus Iran, Russia, China, and you probably add in North Korea. And you could probably add in Turkey, because Turkey is a nuclear power, right?
I haven't heard that. Yeah, I don't have any evidence to indicate that they're a nuclear power.
Okay, so I thought for sure they had gotten something, but we don't know, right? We don't know that they haven't been handed something off, right?
Yeah, I think there was some discussion of whether they could join like this Pakistani defense pact where Pakistan would have its nuclear umbrella over a bunch of countries, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, maybe Egypt, or even Turkey, maybe even Iran. So Iran talked about maybe joining that kind of Muslim NATO is essentially what was being discussed.
And maybe that's what I'm confusing it with. But the point is, in this process, Turkey is now becoming more aggressive toward us and Israel.
Well, Turkey, thanks to George W. Bush, he pushed a democratization effort in the Middle East and, of course, the Iraq War. And it was the Iraq War run-up that radicalized the Turkish electorate that allowed the Islamists to take power with President Erdogan, I think, in 2002. So that was major blowback even before we started the war. So you're right. Turkey has been, I guess, a little bit unfriendly, very cozy with Russia and China. They've openly discussed joining the Sino-Russian military alliance against the United States while also being a member of NATO. So they're trying to have it both ways. But I think they recognize that the balance of power is shifting in favor of Russia and China, and they don't want to be left on the losing side.
I thought I heard a comment. Well, yeah, here it is. Turkish President Erdogan issues strong criticisms of Israel, Gaza first, then Yemen and Lebanon, and most recently Iran. Israel carries out these attacks not solely for security. From the promised land scenarios to the doomsday scenarios, strange scenarios are being brought to the agenda. This network of gangs that sees itself as superior to other human beings is dragging our region to disaster. And of course, he's made all kinds of comments about the U.S. and Israel. And so in one sense, this is empowering some of these groups. Now, I guess I close with this. What then is ultimately the goal? If we could have spent the billions, and I don't know, how many billions would it take to harden the grid from an EMP, David?
Well, minimally it'd be 50 billion.
Okay, so 50 billion.
An old estimate. So yeah, that's kind of the starter amount.
Okay, so it won't be long before we have spent 50 billion on this, right? At $1 billion a day.
The war in Iran. I think we're spending just in terms of direct terms almost 2 billion a day. So we're looking at hundreds of billions within the next few months.
Okay, so the money that we spend there, we could have hardened the grid, taken the EMP threat off the table, then started spending the money on our own Iron Dome. So
absolutely. So 25 days of war, we probably could have spent the money to harden the entire grid.
Okay, so if the issue is not as we're being told, and usually when the government tells you what the issue is, it's not the issue. If the issue is not that Iran was about to launch a nuclear weapon on us, if the issue is not that, then what is the issue? And I guess that's where I come back to Patrick Wood's new article, Trump's war with Iran is about global trade, period. Is it about global trade? Is it about forcing some of these nations into some kind of Abrahamic Accord? Is it about fighting for the U.S. dollar and getting a hold of these trades and getting a hold of petroleum and energy and natural gas for backing up the tokenization of the dollars and grabbing up assets in with a deal we've cut, I guess, with Ukraine for that, getting that done in Venezuela? Is this about propping up the U.S. from financial collapse by grabbing up assets that are then added to tokenization, which of course would fit with global trade routes being another, issue of economic empowerment? At the end of the day, is this really just about economic power?
Well, I think it's about strategic power. And I think President Trump is sincere in his belief that, we can defeat Iran. He can pick Iran's new leaders, take over their oil, kind of do a Maduro operation. There was discussion before the war, he would send special forces to maybe do a snatch and grab of Khomeini and his son. But essentially, the whole Venezuela episode, our victory there, our one-day war there, essentially, gave him the belief that we could win a war against a country 4 times larger than Iraq and with twice as many people and, mountainous terrain and a 1 million-man army and tens of thousands of missiles. And it was all false. He essentially deluded himself into believing that we could do that. But I do think you're right. I do think there is kind of an economic basis that, if we could control Iran's oil, if we can, I think 30% of China's oil comes through the Gulf from Iran and Gulf state countries. They're still getting that oil. They're getting more oil than ever, thanks to our war. So it's not really accomplishing its objectives. But I do think that is one of the rationales that Trump used in launching the war.
All right. Again, people can agree, they can disagree, but at least we're having a conversation. We're talking about it. We're trying to figure out all sides. And again, that's what we're supposed to do here at Talk Radio, Talk TV. We interview a lot of people. We agree sometimes. We don't agree sometimes. I've just booked Colonel Rob Maness for tomorrow. I'll send him this interview. Let him then come on tomorrow, Colonel Maness, state his position. We're trying to get, different people's positions to figure out, because again, even very decent, smart people disagree on some of this stuff. And I think the more information we take in, hearing various sides, this is then how we can make our own decisions, right?
Absolutely right. And your show, is really one of the best in terms of bringing a lot of the great minds on both sides of the issue, both sides of the war together, and hopefully finding what we can agree on in terms of advancing the U.S. national security interests. Yep,
that's right. Here's his Twitter page if you want to follow him, at America First Con, at America First Con, David Pyne. David, as always, thank you for being with us.
Brannon, great to be with you as always. I look forward to being on your show sometime soon.
Yes, let's pray it's not so soon under bad news, but maybe under good news. But yeah, this thing could drag on for a while. So I think we'll be talking about it again. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Brannon.
David Pyne checking in tonight. You can follow him at America First Con, at America First Con. And we're going to be joined here in just one moment by Patrick Wood, who wrote this article. Trump's war with Iran is about global trade, period. Is that what's really about? We'll find out from Patrick Wood, because he's written a very large article tonight. He's just released March 18th. 2026. We'll be right back after this short break. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. Joining me now is Patrick Wood. We made reference to his article during our interview there with David Pyne. And here's the article. Trump's war with Iran is about global trade, period. Now, this is a rather lengthy article. You'll find it over at technocracy.news, technocracy.news. That is a very bold, unequivocating headline, because it's not Trump's war with Iran is about global trade. It's Trump's war with Iran is about global trade, period. As in, there's nothing else to discuss about it. That is a fact. So that's a very bold headline. Well, it's interesting, Patrick, because I just talked with David, and we talked about the fact that we could harden our grid for, what did he say, Logan, about 50 billion, somewhere in there, 50, 60 billion. We could harden our grid from an EMP. So if Iran is a threat to us from letting off of a missile and sitting up over the U.S. off of a cargo ship or club gay car or a satellite that has a EMP weapon on it coming over the U.S., then we should harden the U.S. grid. And the money we're going to spend on this war, we could have hardened the grid. If Iran has had a nuclear weapon for probably 10 years or more, as Dr. Peter Vincent Price said from this desk, how many more do they need before they become an imminent threat? I would think, well, if they got 3 or 4, they're probably a threat. Okay, but they got 10 or 11 of them. I mean, at what point is this like, how many do you need to be a big problem? So is this, in other words, what I'm trying to say is all the reasons we're being told about why this is being done. And when it comes to government, generally the reason stated is not the reason. So the question that I'm asking, and I'm not making a lot of statements here, I'm asking a lot of questions to try to figure it out. That's why I interviewed David, I interviewed you, I got Colonel Manus coming on tomorrow night. Is this really about Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon if they've already had one for 10 years? Or is this about, as you're saying, trade routes? And as I proposed with David, our global trade routes, well, that's a monetary issue. So at the end of the day, is this really an economic war? Is this about also scooping up more natural resources, cutting natural resource deals and contracts with Ukraine, as we've done, with Venezuela, and talking about grabbing other countries who have, hydroelectricity and minerals to add to tokenization to prop up our collapsing dollar? Is this a Hail Mary to try to find a way to prop up the collapsing United States empire? And is global trade really another way of saying what this is really about is economic war? Do I have that right or not?
Well, you have 90% right, I think. Maybe a couple of issues that I would, points that I would take issue with.
All right, let's do it.
But let me say this. The overarching story here is global trade and these trade routes that are being established by Trump and his administration. Well, that's not exactly right. Trump is doing it, but he's doing it outside of the United States and the authority of the United States. And so what's going on here is when you peel off all the other narratives, you're looking at a purely economic system being created before our eyes. This is the new world order we're looking at, not the old new world order. We talked about that before.
This is not the old order. This is not the old world order. This is the new world order.
That's right. This is a new world order. And we've talked about this, even when the Trilateral Commission members stood up 3 years ago at a plenary meeting of the Trilateral Commission in Europe, or in India, and said, this is the first year of the new world order. And what happened just after that? Well, all of a sudden we see IMEC got created. This is the new trade route. I get the name just right for you here.
The Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor.
Exactly. This has been put on the table, and this is going to be the heart of the new world order. The trade route that will connect Asia to Europe through the Middle East and through Israel as well. And when you see the magnitude of this, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars and flow of goods, and during this through this corridor, you're talking big stakes at this point.
So are you telling me that President Trump and some of his friends are trying to get a hold of the Strait of Hormuz? Also, they want to get the Panama Canal back. Now, what if they go on to create the Ben Gurion port that's been talked about, cutting through Gaza? You're talking about basically major players, and maybe they end up sitting on the International Board of Peace. Now you're talking about a few people controlling all the choke points, or the major choke points of the world for energy and trade. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly so. And you mentioned in Panama, for sure, this was a thorn in our side ever since Jimmy Carter gave it away in 1978 or something. But Trump got it back. And now the main choke point in IMEC is the Strait of Hormuz. Lo and behold, if they can't get the strait settled, then the whole IMEC corridor goes away. There's no other way to do it. They have to have the Strait of Hormuz completely free, open, if you will. And Iran will not play along. They've already said that. They're not going to do it. And in addition to that, we know that Iran defends China. And China has spent billions upon billions of dollars creating their Belt and Road program around the world. And all of a sudden, this is in jeopardy with this new IMEC corridor. In other words, goodbye China, basically.
So a while ago, I said something to David Pyne. Logan, can you take this call from Alex Newman? I want to try to get him on the program. Hold 1 second, Alex. I said something to David Pyne a while ago in relation to the Abraham Accords. Is President Trump doing all this in order to move these nations more and more into the Abraham Accords and into his overall vision and worldview? And it sounds like you just described that.
Yes. The Abraham Accords were created by Jared Kushner, of course, Trump's son-in-law. That's really important. But the Abraham Accords laid the groundwork, the political groundwork for IMEC in the first place. This is very easily connected in my article.
Well, you state in your article, let me read it, the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and the Gulf states on the basis of a shared threat perception toward Iran, were not purely diplomatic achievements. They were the opening move in a sequence. The war with Iran is clearing the military obstacle. IMEC is the commercial architecture that moves into the resulting space. These are connected events, not parallel ones. So when I said to David Pyne a while ago, if you go read the book by General Smedley Butler, his war was called War is a Racket, right?
Yeah.
And he said basically all wars are fought for corporations.
Yes.
I brought that up with David.
Yes.
And basically, this is what you're telling me right now. This is a war being fought for countries / corporations, because at the end of the day, it's corporate fascism, big government, big business. I mean, because Jared's involved. He's the architect. He's not even a government guy. He's a private sector guy, right?
That's right. He is now. When he did the Abraham Accords in the first place, he was working for the government, our government, as a special envoy or whatever to the Mideast. He's on a payroll, but he's not now. He's free floating, if you will.
He's a businessman.
He's even beyond that. I mean, this guy is all over the place, especially in the Mideast. He's conned all these Arab countries to give him billions and billions and billions of dollars. And he's turning their sovereign wealth funds into financing vehicles to make this all happen in the first place. Pouring billions of dollars into IMEC and then also in Gaza as well. All these people, by the way, are saying, "Oh, Israel, Israel, Israel! You know, they're leading us around. They do this, that." I got news for them. The threat is Islam, not Israel at this point, because that's where the money's coming from. Follow the money.
And ironically, it's President Trump's Jewish son-in-law that is empowering the Islamists.
Yes, exactly. This is crazy thinking. And I honestly can't figure that out. I don't want to.
Okay, well, now I did my opening little setup, and I asked you if I had it right, and you said I had about 90% right. What don't I have right?
Well, I can't remember exactly what you said at this point, so I can't.
But basically, that this is a move by President Trump that's mostly an economic war. It's not really about Iran having nuclear weapons. Yes. That's what we're being told. But it's really about an economic war, getting a hold of assets, trade routes, maybe fighting back the death of the U.S. dollar. This is really an economic war.
Exactly.
So,
and
am I right about that?
Trump is using the U.S. military to open or keep free the Strait of Hormuz. It's just that simple. He has. This is a necessary thing. But it's not just to open it. What you seem to be implying is President Trump and likely the members of the Board of Peace want control of it. Yes.
So it's not about opening it, it's about controlling it.
Yes, absolutely right. They have to control it. And at least they have to have a friendly controller, even if it's not them directly. Maybe the UAE at this point, maybe Oman, but not Iran for sure. Because Iran is unstable. They hate us. That's obvious. And they won't play ball with all of the stuff that Trump wants to do. And
so what is the steps here? Is the goal trying to get where there's a group of countries that all have skin in the game, and once they all have skin in the game through trade and through ports, passageways, trade routes, once they all have skin in the game and they're working together, do they then all agree on a new currency by which they're going to trade on?
Exactly so. This is already established in Gaza. Gaza will be using the USD1 currency that's sponsored by Trump's company, World Liberty Financial. They haven't signed it yet, but you can see that this is the only thing on the table for Gaza at this point. So Trump is going to implement USD1 in Gaza. He's also going to control the security layer, and he's going to also control the governance layer. What's left? Nothing other than just add the people and make the buildings shoot up in the sky. And this is exactly what they're trying to do. They want to build a modern Gaza with skyscrapers, beachfront property, whatever. But it's all about trade, because when you talk, especially with the Ben Gurion Canal cutting through Gaza, to the Mediterranean, that blows the whole thing open, completely wide open. And even if they don't get the Ben Gurion Canal in, they'll still benefit by Haifa being a deep water port already identified for the IMEC corridor as a major and the main, actually it's the main connection and the switch around in Israel, where all the goods will be brought into Haifa in the first place and then transferred to other ships, and they go around the world, Europe or whatever. Mm-hmm. This is a big thing. This is a huge plan. When you see the whole thing end to end, you can't believe anybody would have the chutzpah to put us together in the first place, but they did. They've done it. And this was an idea in Kushner's head in the first place when he created the Abraham Accords.
Who gave it to him? Who do you think?
Pardon?
Who do you think gave this idea to Jared Kushner?
Who knows? I honestly couldn't tell you at this point. Maybe I don't think Trump did necessarily, but Trump's obviously he's okay with it. I mean, he's going to make billions, if not trillions, of dollars off this thing.
So there's clearly a battle going on for the New World Order. Is it going to be the United States and some of their Islamic partners? Or is it going to be Russia, China, Iran, those countries?
I'll tell you what, China's in big trouble.
Am I right? Is there not a battle for who's going to control the New World Order?
You would think so, for sure.
Or is that all just theater?
No, mostly theater, because China at this point, they're gonna be killed when their Belt and Road initiative falls apart, and it already has. And the BRICS countries, remember, the I in BRICS is India.
India,
right? India signed the originating leg of IMAC in 2023 with Trump himself. So they bought into the whole thing with the IMEC corridor. They, man, we're going for it big time. So forget BRICS. That leaves Russia kind of isolated in a sense at the top of the world, and they have lots of resources. They can take care of themselves. They don't have to even go outside of their border. If they want to just be isolationists, they could. They could just be fine. But I'll give you the kind of a prophetic insight out. This is speculation for sure. But and there will be a time when Russia comes down to Israel to try to conquer Israel. And that's the
Ezekiel
armies,
38, 39 Gog war.
Their armies will be wiped out in the field militarily.
By God.
Yes, okay, now that's right. So why would Russia be so hot to trot to get out of their cage, if you will, at the top of the world and make their presence known in the Middle East?
To grab a hold of all these ports.
That's right. That's right. If they feel as they're so isolated at that point that the only thing they can do is send all their troops, masses of them, south to attack Israel, and probably other countries as well in the Mideast. But Israel is the target. God will defend.
Well, the
Israel.
Bible says they come after her for her treasures.
Yes.
Plural.
Yes.
So we could be talking oil, gas, ports, gold, silver.
Routes. Yeah. All the riches of the world seem to be accumulating around Israel, not exclusively. Don't think I'm saying, well, Israel's stealing all this stuff from the world. That's not what I said at all. But if the major trade routes, you remember the Silk Road that ran all of the opium and the bad stuff out of India and basically polluted the world. How much money was made with the Silk Road? Buckets of money. This is the same thing right here being constructed. And if they're successful, they'll have a handle on all world, the major portion of the world trade at their fingertips. Now,
so again, it comes back down to that this could be being fought for money, for corporations, for trade, just like Smedley Butler warned about.
Yes.
Or is it Smedley Butler? Was that his name? Look him up. I think it's called
Smedley. I want to say
Smedley Butler. Look at that for me. Will you throw it up on the screen if you find it?
Pretty sure.
I think it's called War is a Racket was the name of his book. He was a general. Mm-hmm. He said it was fought for corporations, almost every war. But you did some work and you found that pretty much all these wars are fought for corporations and or / trade, which is countries and corporations, right?
Exactly. Trade is business. This is how business gets conducted.
And by the way,
trade.
What is Revelation 17 and 18? There it is. War's a Racket. Smedley Butler.
Yeah.
So thank you, Logan. What is Revelation 17? I'm sorry, I keep trying to cross my arms to relieve the pain in my neck and back, but it's not professional. So when the camera comes back, I stop doing it. What is Revelation 17 and 18 describes a new world order headquarters in Babylon. And of course, Babylon's coming back to life now with the fall port. There's another big port. It's supposed to be one of the biggest ports in the world, right?
Yes.
And what do you see? You see the merchants of the world in Revelation 18 standing afar, crying as God is judging and destroying Babylon. Revelation chapter 18. But what do you see? Listen, friends. The Bible tells us in Revelation 18 that the merchants of the world are in the Middle East. They're in Babylon.
Yes.
58 miles south of Baghdad. And go look at the revived Roman Empire and the geography they took up, and the Babylonian Empire, that geography, and you have this headquarters of Antichrist, the world leader in Babylon, and they're involved in trade. If you go to Revelation chapter 18, it begins to list off all of the different things they're trading in, and the resources that they're talking about are high-end dollar items, very expensive plush items. So you're talking about something that allows the wealthy to become wealthy. You know the old saying, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer? That's what's going to happen. I think during this period of time, there's going to be a part of the world that's just trying to make it, right? And then there's the rich, the people that are trading up on the top, a percentage of the world's population. But look at the goods, the materials that are being traded out of Babylon, according to Revelation 18.
Yes.
That means you have to have a revived Middle East like we've never seen. The merchants of the world really centered in the Middle East. And what you're describing is that, right?
You're exactly right. And by the way, just because I haven't related Babylon to IMEC, I'm going to get there. Just give me time.
How?
I can guarantee that somewhere it's going to be seen on the map. But the port that's being the deep water port that's being constructed near Babylon, this is going to play in. I can almost guarantee it. Now, Babylon doesn't have, or Iraq does not have to be a contributor to the world's wealth, if you will. They don't have the gold mines and the silver mines and all that kind of stuff, or they have lots of oil, but that's another thing. But if Babylon is the end nexus, if you will, of this IMEC corridor, that means it will be easy to ship goods into Babylon for its enrichment and its construction as well. These people in the Mideast, they know how to build things like nobody I've ever seen in my lifetime. I think anybody who's look at pictures of how Dubai came about over the 20 years, 30 years, it's a miracle. How they built these buildings, skyscrapers, incredible stuff, and they did it just with slave labor, but That's another issue. But they did it. That's the point. They know how to bring these walking cranes in and start constructing stuff like crazy. Maybe they get cement, maybe they get steel. Who knows how they build this stuff? But they're master builders. That we've never seen anything like this in the United States, anywhere.
Well, I just researched it real quick, and it looks like IMEC and the Grand Fall Port, that they right now are competitors. It looks like they're more like competitors. So the question is, it's at some point, could they merge, one buy out the other, and and they merge?
Well, it's important who owns the port in the first place. I'm sure you want somebody that's going to be friendly to you and your shipping and stuff. They're the people that collect the fees. They don't get to keep the merchandise for themselves. They're just conduit,
right,
to put it through. So the only question is, will that port and will Babylon want to play ball with the whole IMEC corridor? I can't imagine they wouldn't.
And the Bible says that Babylon will have a harbor, right?
Yes.
So that means there's going to have to be some dredging going on, and it's going to be brought in, right? There's going to have to be a harbor. I write about that in my book, The Coming Religious Reich. I write about that because the text says it has a harbor. People are like, well, our Babylon doesn't have a harbor now. But it won't take much for dredging. Of course, when I wrote that book in 2016, we didn't have the fall port. So they're already doing massive things. It's going to be nothing to bring in some dredging and create a harbor for Babylon.
How far away does somebody have to be in a ship to see the smoke rising from a major city like that being burned in Revelation? How many miles away?
50 miles, 100 miles?
50, 100 miles, I would think.
Yep. I want to go back to your article, because you state in the article the nations that are involved. The quarter runs in two legs. The East Quarter links India and their ports, and then you've got Mumbai, the Arabian Gulf terminals. You got Saudi Arabia, Israel. Is Jordan in here?
Jordan, I don't think is in there. No, okay. I don't think so.
But you got the United Arab. You got Dubai.
Excuse me. UAE. Jordan is in there. Jordan's in it.
Yeah, there it is. Into Jordan. There you go. Into Jordan.
Into Jordan. Yeah.
Okay. So look at these nations. Most of these nations are the ones Trump's working with the Abraham Accords.
Yes, exactly right. You got it. That's a major point to understand here.
And all of them tend to be afraid of Iran. They all tend to be afraid of Iran.
They hate him. It's not that they're afraid of him. They hate their guts.
Well, they work together. Like Saudi Arabia and Iran worked together in some capacity at one time, particularly for 9/11, many believe. But over the years, they've gotten afraid of each other, or Iran has been targeting the oil fields of Saudi Arabia. So they don't care for Iran, as you're stating. So they want them gone anyway. They're troublemakers to them.
They are.
Trump comes in to deal with these troublemakers, and in the process says, look, we'll get control of this port. We'll be able to utilize it, make all kinds of money, control the trade routes, and enrich all of us. And I'm a developer. We'll do developments.
Yes. What was
by the way, isn't the thing over at the UAE failing? The Naum, that's falling apart, right?
It's kind of falling apart. It's still there, but who knows? It may get some traction. I don't think so.
But in other words, it looks like they can move everything over to this region.
Exactly. Yeah.
Who else is connecting these dots besides you? Who else is connecting these dots besides you?
I don't know. Honestly, at this point, I don't know. All I can figure in my life, I speak personally from my own life. I can do that much. God has been gracious to me over the years to understand a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world. That's all I'll say. I'll say I won't take any credit for it, but God has somehow opened my eyes to this stuff, and all I do is just basically lay it out there for people to see.
Well, you do a great job of it, and we're so glad you're here because you had a stroke a few years ago, and we were thought, oh my, this is not the time we need to lose Patrick Wood. And God miraculously restored you. Your doctors were blown away. They couldn't figure it out. You were paralyzed on one side, right?
It's totally, yeah. I was flat on my back. Yeah, it's amazing. So I ask God every day, you know, when I get up, the first thing out of my mouth, Lord, is this the day that I get to go to heaven? No, not this day. You got work to do.
Well, I'm glad he's allowed you to stay around to help us understand this. Pretty fascinating, folks, when you consider the conversation I was having with David Pyne, saying, you know, this doesn't seem to be about Iran having nuclear weapons. And
it isn't.
Knowing that Patrick's article was out and he was coming up next, look at how it's falling into place. Okay. And now, and here's the interesting thing. People like David Pyne, he doesn't know about your article yet until I told him tonight. But they don't have this information. But they're already skeptical. They're like, if they've had a nuclear weapon or one or two for 10 years, and they've got potentially EMP nuclear weapons on satellites going over the U.S., and they haven't used any of them, then why are we doing this right now? Which could provoke a bigger problem with Russia, China, you know, Iran, obviously, and spread us around the world thin. Why are we doing this now? And you have to say it. The reasons they're telling us don't make sense. And now I think we're figuring it out. And yes. If we're really concerned about our country being attacked, why are we letting these mosques be built? If Iran is such a massive threat to us right now, I'm not saying they're not a threat, but if there's such a massive threat right now to require the action we're going to do overseas, then wouldn't you say we're going to round them all up and put them in internment camps? We did that during World War II with the Japanese, right?
You would think so.
So, what I'm trying to say is our domestic policy and our foreign policy isn't lining up.
No.
If you believe that these Islamists and Iran is such a threat, then why are you letting these people build mosques? Why are you letting them preach with their imams about destroying America, destroying Israel? Why don't we not kick them out of the country? But instead, we're letting them go. We're letting them grow. They're buying up used Baptist churches to turn into mosques. They're growing rapidly in America. And we're doing nothing. And they're right here.
Yes.
But all of a sudden, we got to go over there and deal with Iran. That, to me, doesn't make sense. And I think we've brought that up before in the past. Our foreign policy and our domestic policy is schizophrenic, which tells you what we're being told when it comes to our foreign policy isn't what it's really, what they say it is about is never what it's really about, right?
Bingo. I agree with that. Totally. Yep. You know, we look at what's happening in America. We're going the way of Great Britain at this point. Great Britain is turning into an Islamic country. They're facing it themselves. They know what's happening. Same thing is happening here in America. In fact, Tommy Robinson has just been on another tour around the States, I think.
Yeah, he is.
That's exactly what he's saying. He said, "You guys don't see what they're doing to you in your own country. They're using your laws, your money, to infiltrate and take over sections of the country, and you'll see it when Sharia law gets established. You all going to be cooked." So that's our plight. You know, I'm okay with that. I mean, you can see this is going to happen whether we complain or not. Foreign policy is where it's at right now. Trump and his henchmen, if you will, are trying to rebuild global trade in their image, and we see it centered all around the Mideast, not with China, not Africa, not South America, whatever, not the Panama Canal. It's centered in the Mideast.
Which, of course, fulfills Bible prophecy. One world government based in the Middle East, a Eurocentric world government based in Babylon.
Yes, I'm gonna get to the end of this trail. I'm sure to figure out exactly what's going on in Babylon, but I can't imagine that Babylon's not going to be wrapped into this thing before it's over. So,
and yet we're told the problem is the Jews. The Jews are dragging us into this.
Give me a break.
That's a scapegoat.
Scapegoat.
Who is driving this? Who's driving this? Not the Jews. Who's driving it?
Well,
there's a Jew driving it, Jared Kushner. There's a Jew, but I'm guarantee you the average Israeli has no idea what we're talking about right now.
I'm sure they don't. And, you have this group of people. I will still say members of the Trilateral Commission are still in the mix. And I've determined in the 1970s, that's not a Jewish organization. I'm sorry, it isn't. You can't say that on any count. And there's just as many non-Jews as Jews in the Trilateral Commission. It has nothing to do with Zionism at all. So go figure, okay? So you see people like A.J. Banga, the president of the World Bank. He's from India, okay? He's a Indian extraction. He's the head of the World Bank, and he's the guy that is on the Board of Peace and also on the Board of Gaza, where he's opened up a bank account for Trump to put all his money in. He's collecting for $1 billion per head. And okay, he's a member of the Trilateral Commission, A.J. Banga. These people are still in play. I guarantee you these people are still there. We see signs of them all over the place. The head of Canada, the head of the UK at this point. Tony Blair was associated with them for a long time as well. So they're in play, and they're obviously going to benefit from all this stuff in the Mideast. No doubt about it.
Let me ask one of these AI platforms. I want to just ask them a quick question. See what they say. Have you asked any of them a question about this?
Oh, I probably have.
Why is Grok not working tonight? It says retry. Grok is about 10 miles from us, Logan. Why is their system such garbage? Look at that. See that? Try again. Try again. Why is it such garbage? And they're 10 miles away.
Wow. Maybe they've been hacked.
It does this all the time. No, it does this to me all the time, Logan. And it doesn't matter which computer I use, the one in my office or this one.
Huh.
Are you able to get in, Logan? That's ridiculous. Maybe I'm asking too smart of questions. All right, I just asked chat. I never have a problem with chat. Only Grok. What's wrong, Elon? All right, I just asked it. Which specific people, countries, and corporations are involved in the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor?
Yeah.
Okay. Countries are India, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, United States, France, Italy, Germany, and the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wait a minute. Why are these guys saying they're not going to help us? Why are they saying they're not going to help us if they're involved in this and want to get hold of this port? Why are they playing this game with us?
You got to think there's a little bit of theater going on here.
There is theater going on.
I'm sorry. It's just...
Wait a minute, look, you guys are a part of a plan to take over the Strait of Hormuz and these ports and this trade route, but you don't want to get involved in helping us secure it? I think something funny is going on. We're being played.
We're being played. Well, we're not. The people are being played. The citizens of the countries are being played. They know exactly what they're doing. Look, at this point, Europe is toast without Russia's natural gas, right?
Right.
They can't, and Russia doesn't want to give it to them. Well, they did, but now they're cut off. And so if this pipeline is established, this massive pipeline through the IMEC corridor can bring natural gas into Europe freely, buku, shiploads of it over with a pipeline. Goodbye, Russia.
So are you thinking that at some point, Germany, Italy, France, the EU is going to help us or help America acquire those?
This whole thing is for their benefit.
Exactly. So at some point, okay, mark and write it down. At some point, these countries are going to be actively involved. Okay. Chat says these countries together represent over half of global GDP.
That's all? Well, I thought that'd be more than that.
And 40% of the world's population.
Yes, that's crazy.
Additional transit, regional countries, route specific, not all are former signatories, but they are geographically critical to the corridor route, Jordan and Israel. The corridor is designed to run sea, India, rail, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, sea, Israel, Europe. Key political leaders and figures. It's driven primarily by heads of state and senior policymakers, not private executives. Okay, but those private executives are standing behind them. Bureaucrats don't do this stuff without marching orders from the corporations. The central banks run the world. Carol Quigley told us that in 1966 in his book, Tragedy and Hope, that the central bankers are running the world. That's a collection of central banks, private banks given charters like the Federal Reserve, given a federal charter, but they're private banks. So don't buy that part of it, that these are senior, because the people in government are just so smart. No, this is business people who have used their money to put those policymakers there. And we got to get down to who are some of the people behind that. But major leaders associated with IMAC, chat says, the central promoter of the project is Narendra Modi. Who is that? Anybody know?
From India.
India, obviously. Joe Biden backed it.
He did.
Oh, yeah. Ursula. I refer to her as the lady off 101 Dalmatians. What's her name?
Yep.
The one likes to make Logan.
Yeah.
Coretta Deville.
Clerk. Yeah.
That's Ursula. She's disgusting. Mohammed bin Salam. That's Saudi Arabia.
Yep. MBS.
Mohammed bin Sayed Al Nahyan.
There's the spy sheik that gave $500 billion to buy into a 50-50, almost a 50% interest in World Liberty Financial.
Ooh, the dollar.
Just a year ago.
The token.
Yep.
Owned by President Trump.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
That's right.
Logan, we're never going to get an interview. Not when we talk like this. He's coming to town on Monday. He's coming to Memphis on Monday. I'm like, should we go over there as part of the press and ask him some questions and get an interview? You're destroying my opportunities in my career, Patrick. I'm just kidding. Benjamin Netanyahu supports the corridor. Other political figures involved in advancing IMAC. Who is that guy? Franco. Is he from Italy, I'm guessing? Who is he? Does it tell us who? Click on this stuff. Yeah, Italian. That's kind of cool. Opens Italian. It up on the side there for you. This guy here, where's he from? Let's see where he's from. Palalo. He is Italian as well.
Italy, yep.
Corporations are organized. IMAC is still early stage, so specific corporations or companies are not formally members, but several types of organizations are central. And then you got the public sector, the multilateral and public sector organizations, European Union, funding via Global Gateway, G20, Launchpad, Partnership for Global Infrastructure. Okay, likely infrastructure and logistic players, ports and shipping, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Mediterranean, rail. There you go. All right. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned infrastructure. Let me give you a truism about technocracy.
Okay.
Technocracy runs on infrastructure. They're master infrastructure builders. This has always been the case, even from the 1930s. Building infrastructure is necessary to make their system work. So we see their hand in all of this stuff. This is why we see them in Gaza right now, all over the place. The arch technocrats. And even Jared Kushner, I think there's an his video, by the way, is in this article. Mm-hmm. Kushner's video. Scroll down, you'll see it there. Play that. This is less than 2 minutes, if you can.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back over to your article.
Just see what he says about technocrats.
Okay, here it is. Loading. You're going to have to sit through a commercial first. A white vinegar and cinnamon stick commercial.
Going forward, number one thing is going to be security. Obviously, we've been working very closely with the Israelis to figure out a way through de-escalation. And the next phase is working with Hamas on demilitarization, which I'll talk about in a second. But without security, nobody's going to make investments. Nobody's going to come, build there. We need investments in order to start giving jobs. We want to take these people. 85% of the aid of Gaza, 85% of the GDP of Gaza has been aid for a long time. That's not sustainable. It doesn't give these people dignity. It doesn't give them hope. And so we want to use free market economy principles. A lot of what President Trump spoke about that he's doing in America, we want to bring the same mindset, the same approach to a place like Gaza to give these people the ability to thrive and have a good life. Let's see. So on the aid, I mentioned the UN. So now people are talking about famine. 100% of the food needs are met, and that's been overabundance. The cost of goods have gone down tremendously. Over 55,000 trucks have gone in, and over 1.4 million pallets. So it's been the largest humanitarian effort done into a war zone that anyone's been able to tell us about. This really has been a great joint effort that everyone's been able to do, and so it's a great thing. We all just heard from Ali. We have been so impressed. Steve and I were speaking to him and the entire committee. Such bravery of these people to step up, and we've worked with the Palestinian Authority, who's been helping us as well. But this committee is the first time. It's a technocratic, apolitical committee. I really want to thank the Arab partners for helping us select the right people to do this. Political committee. I really want to thank the but this committee is the first time. It's a technocratic, apolitical committee. I really want to thank the Arab partners for helping us select the right people to do this, and we just need to believe in them and support them. I put this up here. It's probably a little too small for me to read, but this is really important if you saw the mission statement. So Hamas's mission statement was, we need to destroy the state of Israel. That has not worked well for the people, as we've seen. Their mission statement is, we are committed to establishing security, restoring the essential services that form the bedrock of human dignity, such electricity, water, healthcare, and education, as well as cultivating a society rooted in peace, democracy, and justice, operating with the highest standards of integrity, transparency. So these are the basic things. Their goal is to have peace and to help their people, which is an obvious mission statement for a government, but actually fairly novel for Gaza. So we did a master plan. All
right, so we got the master plan. We've seen it. That's a digital city, digital Gaza. So it's technocratic.
It is. This is pure technocracy. And when you see the whole plan broken out, like these articles I've been writing recently break it down for you, and it's so clear at this point. They're taking the template of technocracy to they're testing it in Gaza, and if it works there, I'm sure it will too. Well, I don't know why it wouldn't. But they'll take that template wherever the Board of Peace goes from here on out. This will be the operating system forever for them.
And the reason, my opinion, is the reason President Trump doesn't really care about the midterms for the most part.
Yes.
I mean, in my opinion, I could be 100% wrong. But the reason I don't think he really cares about the midterm is because he's building something that goes beyond politics of the United States and goes beyond his presidency. True or false?
Exactly right. You're exactly right. If he gets tried in the Senate and impeached, the House, that's one thing. He has to have a trial in the full Senate. If he gets convicted, then he's out. He might as well pack his bags and move to maybe Gaza or maybe Qatar. if he does that, then he'll be in the center of everything that he's creating right now, mostly with taxpayer money. He's using all of these arch technocrats like this David Sachs of the world and the Michael Kratsius and the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. All these people are erecting the system, the infrastructure that makes him tick in the Mideast. If he left the country, I don't think he would bat an eye at this point, because he would be moving on to be maybe the king of the world. Who knows?
Well, he would certainly be one of the most powerful men in the world, and one of the most powerful men in world history.
Yes, he would. Absolutely. So you think about people like Napoleon,
Nebuchadnezzar, Alexander the Great.
A lot of crazy people in the world that rose up to conquer the world, and they all met their fate in the end, I have to say. But Trump may try it. Right now, he's basically the king over Gaza. He undeniably.
And so again, for people to say that the Jews are running all this is not true. If anything, it looks like America is running this. This is America.
Yes, you're exactly right. Exactly right. This tech sector, especially in America, has made it possible.
So the Jews are becoming the scapegoat for what is really a non-Jewish, globalist, Trilateral Commission, technocrat agenda, but they're using the Jews as the scapegoat and the cover.
Yes, undoubtedly. Maybe it's not their fault. Maybe they aren't the ones that are floating this narrative. But remember, down here on the ground level, they have to cause mass disruption, mass confusion, so that nobody can see what they're doing at the top. This has been epic for decades.
Well, how is Russia going to respond to this? Because like tonight, we found out today that Dugin, Logan, which one is it where Dugin, bottom left? Here we go. Dugin retweeted General Flynn today. Alexander Dugin, Putin's brain. And they're having their Catholics for Catholic event, and they're bringing in all these people saying horrible things like Candace Owens and others that are going to be joining this event. And General Flynn's going to be there with them. And by the way, we found out today they're going to charge $1,200 a ticket for this thing. Here's the lineup. You know, Carrie Prigine, who says that the church is Israel. Candace Owens, the thing she has said. And you got Alexander Dugin retweeting General Flynn, who's going to be there at it. Is again, what is going on here from a religious standpoint as we wrap? What do you think's going on here?
The church has its own issues for sure. Maybe they're not related to globalism and all the stuff we're talking about on the IMEC corridor. But clearly, the church is under attack in America. It's being neutralized on every front.
Because you have the Protestant church and then you have the Catholic church. So which one are you talking about?
Whatever is left of what we used to call the traditional Orthodox evangelical church, just take the Bible, take it from cover to cover and see what you find out. That was what we thought before, but today there's the whole thing has been shattered like shards of glass. All over the place. You have this sect, that sect. You got the Doug Wilson saying one thing. You have the other people, the NAR saying another thing, and the other the Catholics are saying Peter Thiel is going to Rome to preach to the Romans about the Antichrist. What? No! Oh my gosh! Well, okay. How does this all happen in just the space of 15 years? The devil's very clever on how he makes a trap for the Christians. He's very clever. And
I have to say, and I said on the radio today, the ones who are being set up for this by this group of people that are doing this are the Christians and the Jews.
Exactly.
We're being told that all the source of suffering and oppression are the problem of the Christians, Zionist, the Christian Zionist, and the Jews. The Christian Zionists and the Jews, they're the problem. Well, isn't that Satan's goal? Destruction of real believers, the discouragement, the persecution of real Christians, and of course the absolute annihilation of any Jews, so that there is no fulfillment of Bible prophecy. There is no fulfillment of Ezekiel chapter 37, the spiritual revival, the redeemed of Israel, that remnant that's talked about that is saved through physically and spiritually the tribulation and fulfill the messianic roles, objectives to receive the kingdom and their king. So Satan is trying to destroy the Christians like us who understand Bible prophecy, understand God's plan for the Jewish people, understand our role as members of the church, God's two programs, the church age, which will go away, and then he'll concentrate with the Jews. We understand that, and we're trying to make the Jew jealous per Romans 11, as the Apostle Paul tells us under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, who himself was a Jew in the tribe of Benjamin.
Yes.
So here we have who's under attack. Who is in this pincher strategy? It's the Christians and Zionists and the Jews.
Exactly. And how many times have we been told in the New Testament, just by itself, do not be deceived?
Yeah.
How many times? I mean, the major doctrines are how not to be deceived. So why are Christians so deceived? They've obviously, the devil's been whispering in their ear along the way, and they've bought the deception. That doesn't mean they're not Christians, by the way, but any Christian can be deceived very easily, unfortunately.
Yep.
So at this time in history, the Christians should be the ones who are standing up, blowing the whistle on all this stuff, what's going on in the world. If they saw the whole picture, they go, whoa, this is the narrative that we should be talking about, not these other things.
So at the end of the day, as we wrap, the war is really not about Iran per se as much, because if it were, we would spend the $50 billion to harden our grid, and thus take some of their military strategy away from even being able to be activated. We would kick a lot of these Islamists that are in agreement with Sharia, Islamic law. We'd kick them out of the country. We'd stop letting them build mosques and build compounds and grow. So if your domestic policy doesn't match your geopolitical policy, your foreign policy, then you know that someone's taking you for a ride. Because if it was legit, your foreign policy, your domestic policy would line up, and they don't.
Exactly right. This is, by the way, this is part of the reason that Courtney and I wrote The Final Betrayal last year. There you go.
There it is.
Folks, we have been betrayed big time. So, we watch the parade go by, and God knows what's going on.
Yep.
We don't have to, tell him.
Yep.
But we should be in a place to tell our fellow citizens what's going on.
And I just love the fact that Bible prophecy is being set up. I mean, this whole conversation of all of the world's wealth and power and focus is moving increasingly away from America, even away from Europe, and it's moving into the Middle East, big time.
Yep, that's it.
Because at the end of the day, Satan does desire to set up an earthly kingdom in Babylon.
Yeah.
That's where he sets up his kingdom. The Lord is going to set his up in Jerusalem. But Satan's trying to stop that from coming. Remember the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Daniel 2, it's the stone representing God and his kingdom that crushes the kingdoms of this world, including the revived Roman Empire that you see being built. It crushes it. It's not cut by human hands. Sorry, Paula White, you don't build the kingdom. You don't bring it. Sorry, Dutch Sheets. Sorry, Doug Wilson. Sorry to all of you guys. You're not doing it. You're building the kingdom of Antichrist, whether you know it or not, if you push this garbage that you are. It is a kingdom that is represented by a stone in Daniel 2, 44 to 45, out of heaven, not cut by human hands. But the Bible says that Satan is for a while going to get a kingdom based in Babylon. And what do we see? Everything is moving to the Middle East as far as concentration, money, wealth, and world trade. This, to me, is exciting. And by the way, isn't it interesting that the eschatology of Kirk Cameron, Doug Wilson, Gary North, Gary DeMar, their eschatology, where is it? Things are going to get better and better and better, and Christianity is going to take over the world, and there's going to be a great revival, and we're going to usher in the kingdom of God. How's that working out for you, fellas? Instead, real Christians are under assault. Real Christians around the world are being murdered and slaughtered by Islamists. Everything is moving away from America. It is moving toward the Middle East. And you see that all the players are putting things into position for a world leader to come on the scene who will use a false dominant church as all these religions are merging. I mean, this Chrislam, Christianity and Islam, Christianity and Marxism, Christianity and the New Age movement, all merging. This ecumenicalism is all merging for a world religion. It's moving toward a world religion. Revelation 17:1, the woman, the great harlot that sits on many waters, waters being a representation of the Gentile nations. Antichrist will use it for a period of time. His 10 world assistants eventually will destroy it along with him. They'll set up a new system, the worship of the beast, and Satan will get, as he indwells, I believe, physically the Antichrist, Satan-possessed Antichrist, sets up a world system in Babylon, and all the merchants of the world are a part of it, and it becomes a dwelling place for demons, Revelation 18. And you tell me tonight, we haven't been discussing everything but it put into place. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, we couldn't have a conversation like this.
We couldn't.
Yet here we are.
Yes.
So if nothing else, this should cause people to get excited as Christians. The Bible is a supernatural book written by a supernatural God. You can trust the pages. And what you don't understand, just wait a while. Just wait a while, and it'll start to come into focus. And that should cause us in this church age to be more excited about evangelism and reaching people for the lost, and particularly your family and your friends, so they don't go through the tribulation period. So let this get you excited, because it does me. Because I realize that God is in control. Daniel 2 makes it very clear. God raises up leaders. Isn't that what Daniel said to Nebuchadnezzar? God raised you up. But then he's going to let your kingdom fall. And he's going to let these others rise up. But then after he lets all these people rise and fall, eventually his kingdom will come and it'll crush all the others. Because at the end of the day, he will be the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. He's not ruling as the king right now. Right now, he's sitting at the right hand of the Father as the high priest, making intercessory prayer for us. But one day he's coming, he's bringing his kingdom, and he'll rule and reign in Jerusalem, and Satan's kingdom over in Babylon, gone. And there'll be 1,000-year millennial reign before the new heaven and the new earth come down. And by the way, when that new heaven and new earth are new earth is brought about and heaven comes down, if you will, the Bible tells us in Revelation that the gates of this heaven, the 12 gates, are named after the 12 Jewish apostles.
That's right.
Isn't that something?
Right. What a slap in the face of all the people who hate Israel today.
I want to correct that. The 12 gates are named after the 12 tribes. Sorry. The 12 gates are named after the 12 tribes of Israel. And then the foundation is named after the apostles, which show you God's plan for Israel and for the church. So the 12 gates made of one pearl, a gate made of one pearl, the 12 gates into heaven, it comes down out of earth, sits out of heaven, sits on earth. The 12 gates are named after the 12 tribes of Israel. And the foundation stones are the apostles, showing God's program of the church and Israel. They're not the same. Sorry, Carrie Prigine, the Catholic Church is not the new Israel. Sorry, Doug Wilson, your Protestant heresy is not going to be the foundation for the new Israel. They're all wrong. These guys don't read the Bible in context. We are reading it in context, letting Scripture interpret Scripture, letting Scripture confirm Scripture. And when you do it in the proper hermeneutical way, using the same rules consistently, you see what God's plan is, which is why we can look at this and bring the Bible to bear. And yet their plan of the world getting better and better and better, it's not happening. It's exactly the opposite. Things are not going from a position of chaos to order. They're going from a position of order to chaos as sin has its rule for a period of time, as Satan is the God of this world. But those days are numbered. But man alive, what we have discussed tonight, Patrick, is bringing Revelation 17 and 18, I think, to life. And I look forward to your research
Yes.
on how Babylon and the fall port could fit in. Thank you.
My pleasure. I'm ready. I'm here, man. I can't wait to get started.
Well, let me know what you got. In the meantime, folks, read it over at technocracy.news, technocracy.news. Trump's war with Iran is about global trade. Period. What a show tonight. Thank you, Patrick. Folks, that's our broadcast for tonight. Where are you going to get programming like this? We're all learning. Look how much I've learned tonight. How much have you learned? I know we're all learning. We're all students. Isn't that what the Bible says? We're to be students that rightly divide the word of truth. We're all students. No one is ever done learning. And that's a great thing about what we do here. We get up every day and learn something new. And the fun part, too, is to learn it in the context of Scripture. And if you appreciate what we're doing, folks, we need your support. Go there now. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. Hey, can you afford $10 a month? $20 a month? If you can, will you go there now and set up an automatic contribution? $10 a month, $20 a month. Maybe you can do more. That'd be great. But I know there's a lot of you out there that can help us. Many hands make for light work. Please help us keep pushing out programs like this so we can all have wisdom and understanding of the times. Thanks for watching and thanks for supporting. Till next time, I'm Brannon House. May God save America. Take care.